soap makers. In this video, we are going to discuss about the use of citric acid in your handmade soap, why it is used, and how you can use it effectively to create your own chelating agent where you can avoid the chemicals of EDTA. Before we begin, make sure you subscribe to my channel and click on the bell icon to make sure that you receive cool updates like this. What is a chelator? Chelator is basically that ingredient that is going to bind all the metal ions in your product and in your soap to make sure that it doesn't react with anything else and avoid the oxidation or probably the DOS in your soap. So citric acid, the myth is that adding citric acid is going to reduce the pH, but that's not what happens. Before even the soap is created, the citric acid in your soap reacts with the sodium or potassium hydroxide, that is basically your lye, and creates into potassium and sodium citrate. So citric acid with potassium hydroxide gives you potassium citrate, and citric acid with sodium hydroxide gives you sodium citrate, which acts as natural chelators. These are biodegradable, so it's adding value to your soap. Now, what are the other options for chelators? You can use something that is plant-based and natural, like sodium gluconate, which I'm going to talk about in the further videos. And the commercial soaps in general uses something called as an EDTA, which is non-biodegradable and leads to the toxicity of water and toxicity of animals. In small quantities, yes, it may not matter too much, but the regular induction of these EDTA into the water bodies are definitely harmful. Let's see how you can use citric acid and what changes or adjustments you need to use in the formula or you need to make. 10 grams of citric acid will react with 6 grams of sodium hydroxide, and 10 grams of citric acid will neutralize 8 grams of potassium hydroxide. So you have to add additional sodium hydroxide to make up for the loss or the use of sodium hydroxide with your citric acid. Though this potassium and sodium citrate are good chelating agents, let me tell you, they are not very strong. So I usually prefer adding citric acid, also sodium gluconate, which is a natural alternative. Let's look into the calculation of how you need to adjust your formula. Let's say for a bar soap, ideally you can use 1 to 2% of citric acid. I'm taking it 2% because since it's a weaker chelator. And for liquid soaps, anywhere between 0.5 to 1%. So if your oil weight, so this is when I say that 2% citric acid, that means 2% of your weight of oil. So if your weight of oil is 1000, so you're making a 1 kg batch, 2% of citric acid means 20 grams of citric acid. Okay, when uh, 10 gram neutralizes 6 grams, so 20 grams is going to neutralize 12 grams. You can download this sheet below. You can just enter your values, or you can also just make a note of it and do manual calculation. So this is how the calculation is done. So citric acid, how much? So first calculate 2%, 2% of your weight of oil. Now let me show you. Let's say I have 3000 kgs, 3000 grams. 2% of 3000 is going to be 3000 into 2 by 100. Okay, so that gives you 60 grams. Now 10 grams is what you need. So citric acid amount divide by 10 into it neutralizes 6 grams. So in case of sodium hydroxide, we are going to use 6 grams, and in case of potassium hydroxide, we are going to use 8 grams. So ideally, you need to add additional 36 grams of your sodium hydroxide. If I do the same thing for potassium hydroxide, So here I'm taking 1%, which is equal to 3000 into, you can do zero point 0.1 or 1 by 100. So just for beginners or someone who needs help with the calculation, I'm making it very simple. So again, how much of lye is being neutralized, you need to replace the same amount of lye into it. So this is going to be the citric acid. This is going to be amount of citric acid divided by 10, because 10 grams of citric acid, into 8. So here you are going to use 24 grams of potassium hydroxide if you are using it in your liquid soaps. Hope this video helps. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Let's also talk about sodium gluconate. So sodium gluconate is another very cheap alternative and a natural alternative. It will cost you not more than 60-70 rupees kg. So sodium gluconate. So I like to use it 0.5% of oil weight. Okay, so similarly you're going to use the same calculation, but here the sodium gluconate is a chelator on its own. It's not neutralizing the lye, so you can just calculate 0.5% and then add it into your soaps. So if my batch is 1000 grams of oil, okay, if my batch is 1000 grams of oil, so it's going to be 1000 into 0.5 divided by 100. So this gives me 5 grams. So you can add this citric acid directly into your lye water, or you can dissolve the citric acid and add it to your lye water. You can also add sodium gluconate into water. It is just like salt, very easily dissolvable. You can dissolve it this amount into some amount of water from the formula, and then add it to your lye water or add it to your oils, because ultimately everything is going to mix. Hope you find this video useful. If you have any comments or queries, please do drop it in the comment section. If you want to download this sheet, let me know and I will send this across to you.